Revenge on Ex-Girlfriend, Karmic Edition. Well, this is a lengthy tale. I'm using a throwaway account since my Reddit username is well known among my friends. Beginning, my birthplace is India. When I was 10, my father took a job in a little rural town in Australia. It was a disaster. I was short, chubby, brown, spoke with an accent, and had little understanding of the culture. At school, I was tormented by a gang of racist jerks, and life was miserable. Fortunately, I maintained my marks and received a scholarship to study science at a large university in a major city. During my first day of university tutorials, I observed a timid, awkward-looking obese Indian girl sitting by herself. Her name was Rani, and she was also from a little town. She just recently moved up here with her second cousins. We instantly became friends over how awful high school was and how wonderful it was to live in a cosmopolitan city. We discovered that we had many interests and joined the same societies/clubs at our institution: video games, board games, Indian cultural clubs, ballroom, dancing, etc. I asked her out after about a month. She was the first female I had asked out, and she said yes. We dated in private and became each other's first loves, kiss, love, relationship, partner, etc. She moved into my flat after a year of covert dating. Life was wonderful. We never argued, had no difficulties, had similar interests and friends, were continuously attracted to one another, had every day, and so on. It was ideal, simply two lovebirds starting a life together. Problem: after secretly dating for 2 years, we decided to meet one another's families. My parents are Orthodox Muslims, yet they were aware that I would be dating. They were just relieved that I had picked an Indian girl with whom they could identify. Her parents were originally gruff and aggressive. When they met me, though, they fell in love with me right away. The only issue was that they wanted us to marry. Rani and I had previously discussed it. We both wanted to go to medical school after finishing our bachelor's degrees. We both want a family and a white picket fence, but we agreed to postpone our plans until after medical school. However, after meeting her parents and after some soul searching, I decided to expedite the plan. My aim was to propose to her once we earned our bachelor's degrees in 2 years. We'd be married over the 5-month vacation following university, do some traveling, have a honeymoon, and then start medical school as husband and wife. Meanwhile, I resolved to lose all of my extra weight and become the gorgeous groom she deserved. Both she and I were overweight, and we never had any problems with our weight or attractiveness to each other, and I didn't mind that she stayed that way for the rest of our lives. I just wanted to better myself and become the gorgeous guy she deserves to be with. Rani was initially supportive of my weight reduction efforts. She appreciated the new me and the amount of energy and confidence I had. I had reduced 30 kgs and reached my optimum body weight after a year. I began lifting weights and gaining muscular bulk. Rani began to feel increasingly uneasy about herself. I would tell her that I had no problems with her weight, but we began to argue more often. She was irritated by the fact that I always cooked my meals and didn't dine out with her as much, that I spent all this time at the gym, that I was too gorgeous for her, and so on. I would constantly convince her that this was not the case, but things continued to deteriorate. With 1 year to go, I informed Rani's father of my plans. I requested for his permission to marry Rani on the condition that we marry after graduation, so that we wouldn't have to worry about a wedding while applying to medical school. He answered yes, and he was overjoyed. Rani began behaving strangely chilly and strange with 8 months to go. I had a feeling something was wrong. At first, I assumed it was the stress of med school admission tests, schoolwork, and so on. I opened her laptop 2 weeks into the cold to check up this leasing agreement stuff about our apartment. I saw a weird message from this person on Messenger. Rani had a buddy who resembled and behaved like the stupid fat brother from Earl Is My Name. He was completely socially incompetent, obnoxious, and completely uncultured/ignorant. He was quite obese and had terrible bowel movements all of the time. He was in the same board game/video game/anime group as us. Rani had been complaining to Earlbro about our relationship for the previous year or so, according to her Skype communications. Earlbro had declared his feelings for her a few times, but Rani had always turned him down. Rani and Earlbro must have cheated 2 weeks ago. Earlbro wanted Rani to end our relationship, but Rani said it was all a mistake and that she should stop talking about it. So when I saw red, I instantly packed my. I printed out the messages. I informed my landlord that I will not renew my lease. I texted Rani to let her know that I was aware of the situation and that we had reached an agreement. I hurriedly relocate most of my belongings, I don't have much, most of our belongings were Ranny's, to a friend's home and asked my pals to protect me from Ranny. Ranny, on the other hand, was enraged. She supposedly fled home when she saw my belongings were missing. She went to a mutual friend's home and began crying her eyes out. She attempted to contact me, but my buddies removed all of her texts, etc. Her bro was apparently a drunken mistake. She never meant to harm me. She cheated because she felt I was becoming fit so that I could find a better partner and upgrade from her. WTF? Could I please see her for another chance/closure? Blah blah. I made the decision that I would never speak to her again, something which I have successfully achieved. Revenge 1. A day after abandoning Ranny, Ranny's father began blowing up my phone. He was adamant that I explain why I destroyed her heart. Her 2 elder brothers also phoned and threatened her. I did not return their voicemails. Instead, I wrote a mass email to Ranny and my parents. In the email, I wrote a heartfelt message about how I had envisioned Ranny and I getting married but she had cheated. I copied screenshots of her message, and how I apologized for causing a commotion and diminishing our family's status. Indians place a high value on family status, but that I needed my space to focus on getting into med school. Within an hour of writing the email, Ranny's father called. He apologized profusely. He apologized and said that his daughter had made a mistake. He claimed he'd drive up to my house and urge me to take Ranny back, and he'd pay me money. WTF. I accepted his apologies, but told him I didn't want to speak with her or her family again and wished them the best. Ranny's family went out to our city a week later. They drove Ranny back to their little village and removed her from her classes. She did not graduate on time and was thus unable to apply to medical school. She returned a year later to finish her course but failed. She ended up living at home for a year while jobless before taking a retail job. She gained a lot of weight and now resembles a bleeding globe. Her dishonesty became known in the Indian society, and her family was outraged. Ranny is now very sad, and her family blames her for undermining their standing in the Indian society. Revenge number 2. I went to medical school in another state. A number of Indian parents contacted me about tutoring their children. Amina, one of the students I mentored, blew me away. She was studying science and aspired to be a doctor. She was beautiful on the inside and out. She had a lovely grin that brightened up the room. Most significantly, she had a lovely soul. She was involved in her community and volunteered extensively, not because she thought it would help her get into medical school, but because she really cared. I realized I was in love with her after teaching her for a year. I asked her out, but she said no. She said she loved me as well, but she is devout and prefers an arranged marriage in accordance with Islamic law. Despite the fact that I wasn't dating her, I knew she was my ideal lady, so I phoned my parents. My parents and her parents planned our marriage with the understanding that we would be engaged for 2 years until both she and I finished our respective degrees. We began dating as fiancés about this time I know. Ranny and I developed a bucket list of romantic things we wanted to undertake as a couple years ago. Amina discovered the list. When I described the scenario to Amina, she said she loved the list and wanted us to finish the activities with some changes. We hoped to finish the list before our wedding. Amina photographed and scrapbooked all of our experiences as we finished them: climbing a mountain, salsa dancing, the Great Barrier Reef, Rome/Paris, and so on. Amina posted our scrapbook on Facebook a few months before our wedding date. Ranny gained access to the scrapbook in some way. She wrote a harsh note to Amina, accusing her of stealing her concept. Amina responded with a visceral letter about how dreadful Ranny is, how terrible it must be to lose someone like me, and how the scrapbook was our concept before we were married. Hearing I was getting married had to have driven Ranny over the over, and she vowed to kill herself. She had to spend 3 weeks in a mental health facility. In our Indian community, it was a huge scandal. This happened 3 years ago. Revenge 3. I've been married to Amina for 2 years, and everything has gone swimmingly. She is currently at medical school, and I am a junior physician. We're now trying for a child. My father phoned me last Sunday. My father's acquaintance from another city was attempting to arrange a marriage for his son. Ranny's parents had approached him with an offer. My father's buddy contacted to inquire about Ranny before introducing her to his son. My father sent my first email to this man, who then phoned and informed him about Ranny's adultery, pulling out of university, despair, and so on. Needless to say, He bolted for the hills and called off the scheduled marriage. He was grateful for my father's suggestion and promised to inform other Indians in his state about her past. End note. That's all there is to it. In the end, I didn't even have to speak to Rani over the years to exact my vengeance. Karma served it all out on a silver platter. I have a lovely wife and a career I adore, while Rani has only despair and self-destruction. This was all because I wanted to lose weight before proposing to her. It's definitely not pro-revenge, but I still like it. And maybe some of you guys who have had bad luck with love may find some peace/joy by reading this. Just passing on the good karma.